As Nigeria looks ahead to future elections, the call for more deliberate and forward-looking approach to electoral reform continues to grow. From questions around how INEC leadership is appointed to debates over whether the electronic transmission or upload of results should be legally binding, it's clear that key aspects of the process need urgent attention. Our focus tonight is on how reforms can be strengthened to better reflect the realities of our democracy, whether it's improving the regulation of political parties, addressing vote buying and security interference, expanding access through diaspora and early voting, or considering a shift to a single-day election system. With more public demand for transparency, inclusion, and credibility, this conversation asks what kind of reforms are necessary to secure the future of election in Nigeria, not just for 2027, but beyond. I am Ezenwa. Welcome to Electoral Reform Half Hour on NTA News 24 Abuja. This program is brought to you by Peering Advocacy and Advancement Center in Africa with support from MacArthur Foundation. Attorney Dr. Matthew Wogu is the member representing Abombise Ngopala Federal Constituency in the 10th Assembly. A seasoned public servant, he previously served as chairman of the Imo State Local Government Service Commission and Pension Board in 2018. He was appointed to the board of the Federal Housing Authority representing the Southeast. With a strong background in governance and public administration, he brings valuable experience to legislative work at the national level. I want to welcome you very specially, Attorney, to the program tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Let's cut straight into the, conversation today. As a first-time member, first-time member of the National Assembly, what has been your initial observation about how electoral reforms are treated within the Assembly?
Well, thank you very much. My observation from the first time we resumed the 10th Assembly is that the 10th Assembly is geared towards making sure that there are reforms, more especially electoral reforms, that will change the way elections are conducted in Nigeria. And they have been doing that through the formation of the Electoral Committee on Electoral Matters and having a joint committee of the Federal House and the Senate. So,
are you a part of that? Are you in the?
I'm not a member of the committees, but I work closely with some of the members.
Some of the members, okay. So what mechanisms exist within the National Assembly to prioritize electoral reform bills? And how can civil society, help in pushing them towards forward, if you want? There has been growing calls to restructure the appointment of the process for the appointment of INEC leadership, for instance. Do you have any thought around that, or what's your view?
Well, my view on that is that the appointments of the leadership of INEC shouldn't be done by one person. It should not be a unilateral decision based on likes or party affiliation. There should be an independent body created to be able to advise who should be made INEC chairman, who should be REC, and the other positions. The problem is that when you appoint a party member to that position, he or she is likely going to do your bidding. So it is incumbent on us, the legislators, to make laws that will make some changes in the appointment process. So, and this is what the House Committee and the Senate committees are doing.
Yeah, so what is now the current status of the appointment? The National Assembly plays very strong oversight rules in the appointment. The president nominates,
and the Senate confirms.
And the Senate confirms. So if we have any problem with the appointees, would you not think that it has to do with failure of oversight?
Not really. I think I can remember vividly there was an appointment that the president had made that was rejected one time. One Mrs. Onoche. And I think if the House and the Senate considers their job very seriously and know that they have taken an oath to uphold the Nigerian Constitution, they should be able to scrutinize whoever is appointed and make decisive decision as to whether they are qualified or not. But the issue in Nigeria now is that everything is not balanced.
Why is everything not balanced, Honorable?
Everything is not balanced because most of the things are done in a bipartisan way. It is partisan every time. Some people believe it is about their party or another, or maybe it is from their religion or from their ethnic groups. We shouldn't base national issues based on
those kind of
considerations at all.
So if we take the appointment of INEC leadership to this special committee that you were recommending, would they not come under the influence of some of these ethnic, political influence
I do think if you bring it into this special committee, one or two people can observe or make noise about the appointment, that the civil society can get involved. And the more noise that is made and people are rejecting or scrutinizing whatever those people may have observed, then the country will take notice that there are some issues that this particular appointee may have.
Well, I think at least there are periods in which the National Assembly has come strong, but often than not, we just see that it's take a bow, and and that has not been helpful. But let's move on to issue of party primaries, and whether it's the dominant political party or the other political parties. We've seen that the issue of primary, and the INEC chairman continues to make the point that primary elections are the most important elections, that the one INEC conducts is a secondary election. So do you think that INEC should play much more role in regulating party primaries, especially where there are irregularities? And why I ask that question is that nearly 60% of the cases that arise out of even the 2023 election are not election issues that has to do with conduct of elections. They are actually more to do with conduct of party primaries.
I do believe that INEC needs to get more involved. Though the courts have ruled that the parties should be able to decide on their internal matters, but some of these internal matters may be compromised one way or another. If INEC is actually independent and they can make an independent decision by supervising the parties, I think they should be able to, we should be able to have primaries devoid of problems. There have been instances where jurisdiction has played a role. Instances where a particular federal constituency, their primary is conducted in another federal constituency within the zone. We need to be able to spell out in the reforms that each constituency should be able to conduct their primary in that particular constituency, not in the zone. You can't carry everything to the headquarters. Of course, the zone might be the headquarters or the capital of the city. But if actually you're representing a particular constituency, let the primary be conducted in that constituency.
If the conditions in that constituency does not, if there is overriding public interest to take it away from there in terms of violence and security concerns.
I do believe that if there are overriding reasons everybody will agree that the reasons exist. It's not that it cannot be unilateral or a subjective answer given by one person. Oh, I believe that Gwagwalada is, for instance, Gwagwalada or Uye is that's issue there. So let's just take it to somewhere else. The parties should all gather and say, because this place we have already scheduled this primary, that location is not conducive for everybody. Let's all agree to move to another location.
So, but you are a politician, and you know that sometimes that agreement can be challenging, because the purveyor of the violence is not external, is not extraneous. The purveyor of the violence may be among.
That is the more reason why the INEC should play a role. Because if INEC is independent and now comes and he has everybody out, they can now make a decision. It's like being a referee. This person
is a referee.
Yeah. Yes. So because you're the referee, you now say, based on our observation, based on what, they can even make independent inquiry as to what is going on. And they can make a decision and say, if it is not here, let us do it here.
Okay, so one of the challenges that we have seen in terms of upload of results and the issues that have arisen out of it has to do with the ambiguity in the laws. What the laws are not very clear whether it's legally binding or not legally binding. What should the National Assembly do in terms of, and not just upload of results, what about electronic collation? Because that is where the challenge is, not even the upload.
The issues involved in our elections is this issue of INEC guidelines. And INEC does not obey their own guidelines. If an INEC makes a guideline, it is supposed to be part of the law. They should be able to enforce their guidelines. If they enforce their guidelines, or if National Assembly makes INEC guidelines, whatever guideline they make it part of the law, part of the act. Okay, then everybody will obey it. But INEC issues a guideline today, 24 hours to the election, they will announce another guideline. It's not going to fly. People will reject it, and people will be upset about it.
Yes, but in the hierarchy of electoral issues, electoral law, if you like,
the Constitution and the Act and the Act they supersede.
They supersede
the guidelines.
The guidelines, and so when INEC makes a guideline, I would think that what will be important will be the law, the act. That is true,
but you see, the truth about it, any act or even guideline that violates the Constitution is ab initio unconstitutional. Therefore, those guidelines, if INEC is going to make them, they should be able to present it and let the House pass a resolution on them.
Yes, but the House have been, the INEC, and I know INEC and the House, Senate were in a parley in Lagos not long ago. And it's not new. Most times, most of what you see are actually, that's the Electoral Committee, Senate Committee, House Committee, and INEC were in some kind of
joint
retreat in Lagos not long ago. How useful do you think that kind of engagement is in terms of the experience that you are talking about now?
I think in such meetings, INEC should disclose to the committees what actually they are thinking, and maybe it can be used as a guide to amend the act, and maybe put this as laws, because when these are put as laws, the courts will not override them. You see, when you give the discretion to INEC, you have also given the discretion to the court. The court can interpret it anyhow, in any way they want. But if it is the law, the Constitution or the Act, the court cannot move away from the law.
We'll go on break now. Electoral Reform Half Hour will continue shortly. Stay with us. Glad to have you back. We're still speaking with Honorable Matthew Nwogu, Honorable Member, House of Representatives, representing Abombise Ngopala Federal Constituency. Honorable, there has been growing calls for Nigeria to adopt a single-day voting system, where all elections, state assembly, presidential, governorship, and some even say local governments, are held
Same day.
Same day. That conversation is on in your.
I'm a co-sponsor of the bill. I'm a co-sponsor of the bill.
Oh, that's excellent. So, can you give us an insight into why you think that, and what you think that will help?
I do believe that if the elections are held the same day, it will encourage participation. First, everybody's interests are compounded the same day. There are voters that have interest in councillorship. There are voters that have interest in the governorship. They don't have to wait until that one is done. If everything is combined, people are encouraged to do the voting the same day. And the cost will be less for Nigeria.
Is this empirical? Because when you say the cost will be, you have to now produce 5 ballot boxes, and you have to times those ballot boxes.
The ballot boxes wouldn't be the problem. The cost of ballot boxes is much, much less than bringing security, hiring the ad hoc staff.
I don't know how many parts of Nigeria you have visited in terms of what the topography, the challenges, the logistics nightmare that could be in terms of moving materials from one point to the other.
I can tell you this much: the cost of moving the materials from one point to another, moving one ballot box is the same as moving 5 boxes, because it's going to be the same vehicle. You cannot, the issue about those calculations, if it is done different days, that is when you have this cumbersome costs on Nigeria. Trillions of naira are being spent for elections. You do election today, you prepare for next 2 weeks, the cost will multiply. And there may be voter apathy if these elections are separated. Turnout will be low. So, but if the elections are held the same day, people will come and vote.
Okay, this proposal, in terms of what's your, I know that you are a co-sponsor of this bill, but what are the downsides? Because in looking at your proposal, you don't just look at. So how do we mitigate the challenges that come with single-day election?
This has to be tested. The problem it may have is that it may be cumbersome on INEC. That is the only issue there. INEC may say, no, it's going to cost us a lot of money to bring everybody. But other than that, I don't think there's any other thing, because the advantages are more than the disadvantages. Because the only issue we have now is that there are some staggered elections in the country. How do you harmonize everything? That is one of the issues.
Mean making sacrifices.
You have to make sacrifices,
yes,
so that these things can be harmonized.
Right, yeah.
Because on a particular day of election, if everybody's interest is accommodated.
For instance, your state is going to be having governorship election in 2028, not 2027.
It's going to be 2027 to be sworn in on 2028.
Yeah. So we have to find a way to, and other states.
There are sacrifices that can be made. The country can sit down. The stakeholders can sit down. I know that the interest is pay and the payment and whatever the benefit to people will be. The country can get an agreement somehow.
Honorable, one of the strongest issues that we are contending with is vote trading and what we call vote buying. In all the elections, whether what do you call them, off-cycle elections, or indeed the general election, we have seen stronger use of money to induce voters. What institutional framework do you think your you and your colleagues in the National Assembly can bring forward to stem this very embarrassing?
We need to criminalize those who do vote buying. We need to make sure the country establishes a commission in charge of investigating and prosecuting those who violate the electoral laws. Once we do that, you cannot make INEC part of it. INEC don't even have enough personnel to supervise the vote buying or supervise those who are doing the vote buying. If you have an independent body who are sent out in all polling units on that day and they see something happening, they apprehend and arrest, then the prosecution will take place. But if you're asking INEC, who is busy doing elections, to catch somebody and prosecute them, it's not possible.
Yeah, but we even see security agents aiding the vote buying itself.
The security agencies should also, when this particular commission is established, they can be able to get the name of the security agent that is involved. Then you may not make that arrest at that particular place, but make sure you have enough evidence. Once the election is over, you can arrest.
Attorney, given that you've spent considerable period of your time living outside the country, the conversation around diaspora voting is gaining a lot of currency. That's folks who live outside the country voting. And early voting and all of that. What's your...
My position is that any person who is a Nigerian should be able to vote, no matter where they are. Because if our military are in a particular country defending the interests of Nigeria, you can't stop them from voting. We should do early voting. There are elderly people who may not get out of their bed on that particular day of election. They should do early voting. But the only issue here is to set up the safeguard. Because
how are you going to keep the votes?
The votes can be protected.
How do you protect them?
If you have if you have the Nigerian embassy, for instance, if the Nigerian embassy is representing the interests of Nigeria, and you have a locked box, locked, not giving them the key, all they have access to is the people that will vote, and the whole thing is voted and is locked. You carry the box and put inside the flight and bring it back to Nigeria and recount it in Nigeria.
What about the early voting part?
The early voting can also take place, but in some countries...
Honorable, honestly, can your election be better than your infrastructure, the level of the infrastructure of your country?
No,
you've lived abroad.
But we're getting there. Nigeria is getting there. But hopefully, because if you don't try, you will not succeed. You can't stop trying and say, oh, let's stop trying. How do you succeed if you don't try?
So apart from this one, the one that you are co-sponsoring, the one on
we are
what are that?
We are prescribing a 6-year term, one term presidency of 6 years, and the rotational presidency, including governorship. So we believe that if this 6th term is adopted in the country, then there will be less conflict. People's ambition will not be too enormous.
So, your final thoughts? What would you like Nigerians to take away from today's conversation on the future of electoral reform in the country?
I do believe that the National Assembly, with the help of the civil societies, are doing a lot to making sure that we have good laws and do good reforms that will lead the next election. This issue about making sure we transmit result, we must define what transmission means. It must be transmission. There must be transmission. And all elections should be transmitted for it to be free and fair.
We are already transmitting. What we are not doing is collation.
Well, the collection should be easy. You remember Bush versus Gore. What the issue was, the pregnant child we don't have that problem in Nigeria because the votes are manually counted. If it's electronically counted, we have these issues.
Honorable, this is where we draw the curtain on this episode of Electoral Reform Half Hour, and we wish to specially thank Honorable Matthew Nwogu for your time and contributions on the program. It was a pleasure having you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so very much
for having me.
For joining us. Electoral Reform Half Hour is brought to you by Peering Advocacy and Advancement Center in Africa, PAACA, with sponsorship from MacArthur Foundation. We are live every Saturday from 8:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. with a repeat broadcast every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. on same station. You can contact us on our social media handles showing on your TV screen. Thank you for watching. I am Ezemwawa.